I can't help but think that the only thing that I keep coming back to is somehow this involves Savannah Guthrie.
We got nothing. I mean, we're literally,
That's how I challenge the abductor of Nancy Guthrie to, in fact, stay anonymous as much as you want. Put some indicators in there that only the investigators would know, so we know it's legit.
I'm Marcus Wren, and I built the Tell Index to study statements and behavior in criminal cases. Nancy, 84, mother of Today co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, disappeared from her Tucson home on February 1st, 2026. 89 days in, retired FBI profilers Jim Fitzgerald and Ray Carr sat down with journalist Brian Entin to lay out a theory that reframes the entire case, and a source's private admission of how little the investigation actually has. Let's go through what holds up. Hit subscribe if you want to see more analysis like this. Fitzgerald lays out the theory he says he's held almost from the very first day.
I can't help but think that the only thing that I keep coming back to is somehow this involves Savannah Guthrie, the TV personality, and and I mean, not that she did anything wrong, but something to do with her profession, something to do with someone who she's been in touch with over the years. And it may not just be weeks or months before. And I've said on other podcasts and other media hits that, in my FBI days in New York City, I had a strong connection with a retired NYPD lieutenant who was the head of security at NBC, 30 Rock. And I was up there once a month with cases involving various of their personnel, mostly women who were getting all kinds of, back then it was mostly letters in the mail or strange phone calls. I can't believe that over the years, Savannah hasn't been receiving these types of emails, social media, whatever. And I'm hoping the behavioralists, as well as the investigators themselves, are looking into every odd and effusive and fan-loving email that she received going back 5 years at least. And then, of course, after her mother comes on the show, would certain emails from certain people come up, consistently, we love your mom, or why do you bring your mom on? I think the answer to this case will lie somewhere in there. Other people talk about cartels and forced entries for purposes of burglary, robbery. I don't think it's that. This has something to do with Savannah on a stalking type scenario. And that's why this is so out of the ordinary in terms of it not having been solved, because a lot of the usual causation factors for these types of abductions, seemingly it wasn't a kidnapping for profit. I said that almost from the very first day, that it has to do something with Savannah. Again, I'm being very careful here, not that she had anything to do with it herself or her family, but there's some stalker, someone out there that couldn't get close to her, so he did the next best thing, and translate that however you choose to, and went after her mother. And therein, I think, will lie the answer, and therein will the behavioralists can best help. Show me a couple emails in a row from someone, even over the course of a few years, and let's focus on that person and find out where they were, in early February of this year.
Fitzgerald's reasoning rests on a specific institutional memory, not a generic hunch. He says he personally worked cases involving obsessive letters and calls directed at NBC on-air personalities while liaising with the network's head of security. That's a narrow but real basis for pattern matching. Fixation on a media figure escalating into contact with someone close to them is a documented behavior in stalking cases generally, not something Fitzgerald is inventing for this one. What he's proposing investigators do is concrete and checkable in principle. A 5-year email and social media review tied to a specific person, not a vague call for more investigation. Whether that review has actually happened isn't something this interview can confirm. Fitzgerald is a retired agent speaking from outside the case, and he says so himself. Fitzgerald explains in specific and falsifiable terms why he doesn't believe money was ever the actual motive.
I never was convinced the ransom request was real. I don't think it was a cover-up. I think it was opportunists taking advantage of a situation, from a very wealthy woman, or certainly through Savannah, say, hey, quick, let's get some money. We have this Bitcoin account already set up. We have these anonymized, emails we can put out. Let's send it off. If this was a true kidnapping, they would have left some kind of a communication on the site that night. Now, unless law enforcement's hiding something from all of us, and boy, it's a well-kept secret if that's the case. This seems to be personal more than professional. This seems to be need-driven behavior more than a financial benefit to the part of the person. And maybe it didn't go well. Maybe she died right away, or within hours. Who knows? The blood, of course, on the front step. Maybe it wasn't supposed to go that way, but nonetheless, the plan after the fact didn't go how it should have.
Fitzgerald's specific test, a real kidnapping leaves a communication at the scene that night, is a claim about what didn't happen, which makes it checkable against the actual public timeline. The first ransom note in this case didn't appear at the scene at all. It went to a Tucson TV station a full day after Nancy vanished. That gap matches exactly what Fitzgerald's framework predicts for a note that isn't a genuine on-the-spot demand. His secondary point, blood on the step as evidence it wasn't supposed to go that way, lines up with what other case reporting has independently described as an early struggle at the scene. Though Fitzgerald is speculating about intent, not describing forensic evidence he's personally reviewed. Carr explains why he doesn't think there's a hidden breakthrough being withheld from the public.
Well,
what leads you to that? What leads you to that? No.
So a source that I have close to the investigation, and like you said, I mean, it may be compartmentalized, and there may be some people who don't know some things that other people know. So this might not be correct, but a source that I have close to the investigation, even yesterday, said, we got nothing. I mean, we're literally, but the good news was that there were 30,000 tips that came in initially, and that there's tips still coming in every day, and they're still going through all of those initial tips. But my source said we're literally at the point where we're even calling back psychics, we're calling back everybody because we don't have anything to go on right now.
Calling back psychics is a specific, memorable detail worth taking at face value carefully. It's presented here as Carr's characterization of an unnamed source's private comment, not an official statement from the sheriff's office or FBI, and Carr says himself the source could be working from partial, compartmentalized knowledge. What it does confirm, regardless of who's ultimately right, is that at least one person with claimed access to the investigation was willing to describe the case as stalled 89 days in, a notably blunter private assessment than any public statement made about the case around the same time. Entin pushes Fitzgerald and Carr on the logical gap in their own theory. If this is about Savannah, does having Nancy resolve anything for the offender?
You mentioned that this person may have been obsessed with Savannah, may have stalked Savannah. I'm just curious if that's the case now that they have taken Nancy Guthrie, would they be satisfied, or is there more that they want?
I'll start with this. Just basically, we don't know, and I would be incautious if I said anything otherwise because we don't know the personality. I would say that, and here's what I will posit to your audience, is that his original goal would have been Savannah Guthrie herself to somehow, and this very well may have happened. He may have knocked on her door. I think she lives in New York in a gated, or not gated, but with doormen, whatever. And I'm sure he could get nowhere near there. But hey, Savannah, she's walking out the door. Who knows on the Today Show when they walk out and the little crowd is out there outside 30 Rock, has he been there? They should look at all the videos, by the way, from back then. I know we're getting labor-intensive type of work, but is there one guy who showed up, multiple times with facial recognition? Could they do something like that? And he couldn't get to Savannah. She's too well protected, and just her confines. So what's the next best thing? Maybe you could argue the kids, but even this guy said, I don't want to mess with kids. That's really wrong. Oh, but this mother, she really cares about her mother. If she's not paying attention to me, let me go after the mother. And boy, he finds out she lives by herself, relatively rural area. So to go back to your question, and I'll let Ray chime in here too, but we don't really know if this person's need-driven behavior have been satisfied. But it certainly has been taken to the next level of where it was before. Now he owns, or owned, I hate to use that word, but for minutes or for hours or who knows how long, a piece of Nancy Guthrie the woman who gave birth to her, and he could spend time asking her all kinds of questions. And I really love your daughter, and she keeps ignoring me, but now at least I can talk to you. That's again is if Mrs. Guthrie made it past the first hour of the abduction. And I'm leaning more and more in something like that is what happened. Is he completely satisfied? I don't know. If it was too high risk before to go after Savannah, it's even more high risk now, no doubt. So I think for practical purposes, this person may have said, I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish, and I've had my satisfaction, not with Savannah, but with her mother, and that fulfills my need-driven behavior for now.
This is genuine disclosed speculation, not a settled profile. Both men frame it that way. The underlying psychological logic that an inaccessible primary target can be displaced onto someone closer to them is a recognized pattern in stalking and obsessional fixation cases generally, which is what Fitzgerald is drawing on rather than anything specific to this case file. Carr's escalation point is the more falsifiable half of the theory. It predicts a documented history of lower-level contact attempts toward Savannah, specifically should exist somewhere before this. If investigators have found no such history, that's the piece of this theory most directly testable against real records, and neither man claims to know whether it's been found. Fitzgerald explains a specific FBI tool and how it would apply to this case's actual ransom notes.
How that will be valuable in the Nancy Guthrie case is looking at the alleged emails that came in, or however they came in through social media, and comparing them to the, I think up to now, hundreds of thousands of separate communications and millions of words in the corpus that the FBI runs. They've since combined it into another database, but it's still up and functioning. And yes, running any letters, I know the FBI does this for a fact, any new letter, email, tweet, X posting comes in, and of course it has criminal or problematic connections to it. They will run it through the database and try to find other ones, and perhaps they can even take it back to some language that's used where an actual real name is affixed to it, and they can then take the case from there. So yes, this database hopefully has been used in this case, certainly comparing any known writings involved in this case, and either that would help strengthen what they're doing or take away that now this is a bogus kidnapping attempt, just people taking advantage of the situation.
The value of this tool is narrower and more specific than identify the writer, and Fitzgerald is precise about that limit. It's a language matching system, checking phrasing and structure against a large existing archive, not a tool that produces a name on its own. Applied here, its realistic output is binary and useful either way. Either the Guthrie notes share identifiable language patterns with communications already on file somewhere else, which would be a genuine lead, or they don't, which itself supports Fitzgerald's opportunist theory from round 2, rather than undermining it. Fitzgerald closes by speaking on air directly to whoever took Nancy.
That's how I challenge the abductor of Nancy Guthrie to, in fact, stay anonymous as much as you want. Put some indicators in there that only the investigators would know, so we know it's legit. We made sure that was clear, and then and give us a reason behind this, and maybe, in a way, you'll have a little bit more respect coming your way, down the line.
This is a real standard technique in offender communication, not just a talking point for the camera. Profilers have long used public statements specifically designed to appeal to an offender's need for recognition on the theory, which Fitzgerald states directly elsewhere in the same interview, that most people who commit crimes like this still want their reasoning understood, even anonymously. The specific instruction to include indicators only the investigators would know also matches real practice. It's the same hold-back evidence logic used to screen out false confessors, applied here as a filter for any future response, not just this appeal. A stalker theory built on real institutional memory of fan mail cases, testable against 5 years of records nobody outside the investigation can check. A ransom note timeline that matches Fitzgerald's own prediction almost exactly. A source's private admission that sounds far more stalled than anything said in public. A displacement theory with one specific, checkable weak point. A database that can only confirm or rule out, not name a suspect. And a direct appeal built on real profiling doctrine about what offenders actually want. Which of these 6 points changed how you're reading this case? Comment below. I read everyone. Subscribe for more analysis like this.